Welcome to the Nonprofit Voice, which is brought to you by NonProfit Pro, the go-to resource for nonprofit management and strategy. For our Nonprofit Voice text series, join Mark Becker, founding partner of Cathexis Partners and editorial advisory board member for NonProfit Pro. In each episode, he will welcome nonprofit executives and technology partners to discuss the latest nonprofit tools to help your organization navigate the rapidly evolving technology landscape. This special episode features a technology provider that will be attending BridgeTech, a new education day on August 2nd prior to the Bridge Conference in National Harbor, Maryland. For more information and to join NonProfit Pro, DMAW, and AFPDC at BridgeTech, visit bridgeconf.com. That's BridgeConf.com. And add BridgeTech to your Bridge Conference registration at checkout.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Mark Becker here, founding partner of Cathexis Partners. Today, we're going to talk about volunteerism. To that end, Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Mark. I'm Sam Fankuchen. I'm the founder and CEO of Golden, which is the most award-winning volunteer management software in the world and the most popular app for volunteering. Although many of our clients who use Golden have their branding on our products, so end users don't always recognize Golden at face value for being the infrastructure they're used to using.
I did notice that when I was looking around at Hands on Atlanta and their registration process and their volunteerism, didn't see your logos anywhere. So well done. I like the incognito, leave the nonprofits to shine. And I kind of spoiled it already. Stepped on the intro to Tim. If you want to tell everybody about yourself and your organization.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. My name is Tim Adkins. I'm the director of marketing and communications at Hands on Atlanta. I've been in my role for about 5.5 years. Seen a lot. Seen a global pandemic. Seen the world change. Seen how volunteering changes. Hands on Atlanta. It's been around since 1989, so we're like a legacy organization here in the Atlanta community. We mobilize volunteers, so we partner with nonprofits and schools across the city to tackle our city's most pressing needs. So primarily focused on education, food security, sustainability, as where you'll see most of the projects posted on our calendar for. But we've got a lot of programming. We do a lot of stuff. We're spread really thin, like any other nonprofit. We're trying to do it all, and the software and the technology that we use really does help us. And so I was looking forward to the conversation today to talk a little bit more about that.
And as I understand it, you've been on kind of fully rolled out on Golden for about 6 months now. Is that right? So post-pandemic, well, post-ish. I mean, are we ever post-pandemic? Yes, no, maybe, but yeah. So last 6 months or so, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We've been in talks with Sam and his team for a couple of years, and we finally were able to kind of get the process rolling and get everything together. We had to do a little fundraising on our part to get the wheels rolling, and then once we turned the switch, I believe it was July 25th of 2022, and it was a lot of data migration, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of exports and imports. And once we got everything set up, it's been a fantastic benefit to not only my team, just the way that we operate and the way that we work, but obviously the community at large. It's the quickest and the fastest way that people can post opportunities, but also that they can find them and sign up for opportunities to serve, which that's what we're all about. So we're a frequency game. We're trying to engage as many people as possible. There's 6 million people in Metro Atlanta. We're talking to close to 40,000 every year. So we've got a long way to go. And this technology has been able to really help us move in the right direction. I mean, I can spit off some quick numbers if you want, just some growth so far that we've seen. When you look at like this time, first 6 months that we've had on Golden. So our fiscal year starts in August. So just going from August 22 to February 23, we've engaged about 5,000 more people than we did the same time prior to last year. And we've had tons of virtual opportunities as well. So like there hasn't been a lack of volunteer engagement or choice for that matter. It's simply been more of a frequency of numbers and people that we're getting through the system. We've seen an increase in 18,000 hours in service. So more people are serving, and we're accumulating more hours. And so those are like the two highline metrics that we're looking at. Our partners are posting more projects. So we've got about 3,000 more projects posted this time, using Golden than we did before as well. So partners are finding success. We're able to check in people faster. There's all kinds of I could go on for a long time about but all the things we like about it. But yeah, it's been dramatic for us in our organization, just in terms of how we're able to help our nonprofits and build their capacity, but also how we're able to help volunteers just find what they're looking for as frictionless as possible.
Yeah, and as I understand it, you're on Salesforce as a CRM, so you then have that integrated with Golden to be able to have all that kind of in the database of record at the end of the day.
Yeah, but to be totally honest, I don't spend a whole lot of time in Salesforce. So most of the data that I need and that we're looking at lives inside the dashboard that we use for Golden. So they're high level metrics, and then I pull a lot of that stuff into reports, and Excel spits out a bunch of numbers, and we're doing a data analysis and things like that.
Perfect. Yeah, Sam. Any color to add around their onboarding or the process for someone to consider moving to Golden, and what they can expect on a return on investment?
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, thanks for sharing. This is the first I'm hearing some of these metrics, so it's cool to hear it coming from your mouth. But yeah, regardless of what technology anybody's using or not using, I think a very clear point of understanding what kind of return on investment you're getting. One parameter to look at, especially if you really care about your program, which hopefully the people we work with, and especially Hands on Atlanta, which, by the way, many people listening to this podcast will be familiar with Tim's program and their whole team. They generally, internationally, but especially in the United States, have a reputation for operational excellence as a volunteer center, sitting in between a very vibrant community of nonprofits, but also corporations. And in Atlanta, there's a huge concentration of large-scale employers like Delta, Home Depot, Coca-Cola, et cetera. And Hands on Atlanta is working with all of those kinds of organizations, as well as much smaller organizations, to understand what they can do to be the best version of their company or the best version of their nonprofit in a broader community of the greater Atlanta area. And in that way, they're really seen as the absolute vanguards in the country. There are only a handful of other volunteer centers that operate on that level. I'll go ahead and call a few of them out because I think they deserve some recognition. NY Cares, New York Cares, Hands on Bay Area stand out to me, but there are many others that are great too. In terms of technology, though, this team is far ahead. And so when Tim says that they did some migration up front, that's only because they kept very diligent records themselves before, and they didn't want to lose continuity of their historical information and seeing how it lines up into current information, so that he can espouse performance differences before and afters just the way that he did. Had they not been so meticulous, they would have had those records. There would have been no data migration hurdle whatsoever. But we really believe in helping the organizations operate to their full potential and really drive toward excellence if they want to do that. And so we take some time to support them, but by and large, that's not really the experience. If people have historical records, usually those are migrated within a week or two. It's just that these folks had really complicated records. The other thing is, the point I was making earlier is a metric everybody should be looking at when migration or adoption of a new system comes into place, particularly a technology system that may have migration or implementation, but also human change management, is a parameter called time to value. And in particular in Salesforce, which Hands on Atlanta uses, and I know, Mark, you were referring to a little earlier, this is a huge metric because the power of a tool like Salesforce is in what you can do with it, not what it does out of the box. Mm-hmm. And so you need to consider, in addition to the base licensing fees, how you want to be using it. You need to train, what you need to build out and customize, what you need to maintain. If you're doing that internally with your own team and or with an external consultant, et cetera, and that's a big project. But Tim, just to zoom out, and so that people on the call who are following along understand the magnitude of the work that you guys did. on average in 2022, at the end of 2022, the independent sector, which is the authority most people use for value of volunteer time calculation, it's the time officially that you can use on your 990 tax form. The national average for an hour of volunteer time is like a couple pennies under $30 an hour nationally. And I don't know off the top of my head what Georgia's is, but maybe you can tell us. So the number that you just gave us in the first 6 months alone, the increase in performance that you guys saw in terms of numbers of hours booked equates to $500,000 in economic value in addition to what you were already doing. And to have had that up and running within while you were doing whatever migration and implementation is just absolutely massive. And I'm sure, Mark, you'll ask us a little bit about what it means to engage a stakeholder, whether that stakeholder is a volunteer or an advocate or a donor. But in our view, the most valuable donors are volunteers. There's very clear academic research around this and industry research. For example, one we quote very frequently is a little dated now, but it's done by Fidelity Charitable, which most would agree is an absolute pillar in the philanthropic community related to funding, particularly from donor advised funds. And Fidelity Charitable says that people who volunteer donate 10 times more than those who don't volunteer. And I think all of us are looking at very unusual economic circumstances this week. Today is, as we're recording this, March 23rd, 2023. And in the last 2 weeks, 16th largest financial institution went into receivership under FDIC. Many others are close, sort of on the precipice. And there's been, in our space, significant layoffs across sectors and across industries. And those are signals that don't necessarily give us the warm fuzzies about what this year's fundraising metrics will look like. And so those of us who are in the business of making sure that those numbers go up every year need to be thinking about cultivating new populations of supporters, the ones who are going to be evergreen, the ones who are going to have high lifetime value. And they don't start as pure donors. And donors aren't just pure donors. It's about the 360-degree understanding of who they are, what opportunities are available to them, and getting them engaged in the right pattern of engagement. And it's a real area where Hands On Atlanta shines. And hopefully we'll be able to put up some big numbers this year despite the economic conditions, because we're cultivating a better class of donor than used to exist.
I like it. No, that's all great stuff. And it's interesting because, I've been following Golden Volunteer for a few years now since I learned about it. I find it so interesting because so many of the enterprise suites in the nonprofit space have really done a poor job or no job of building out a volunteer module in their suite of tools because it's not a moneymaker for them, right? It's like, oh, it's on the roadmap, or we have this thing, you can create some forms, but it really is lacking in many cases. So it's so great to see that you came out with a reasonably priced, solution, right out of the gates that you integrate with a lot of different platforms. So, well done on that end. And yeah, my hat's off to you because the industry definitely needed it.
Thanks. I mean, we are from where we sit, and the reason why the company is called Golden is because we want anybody to be able to live in their golden moments through acts of service in all their forms, which for us means removing any interference or any friction between anybody just identifying things that are inspiring to them, where they feel like they're in the place they should be and they're free to contribute to their potential. And that has nothing to do with us. What has to do with us is understanding where there were systemic or systematic, system scale or specific interaction barriers to people having the experience they always wanted to have. And there were many, finding organizations, getting qualified, getting in touch, scheduling, going through all kinds of paperwork and background checks. These are things that withheld, the difference between the 90% of Americans who wanted to volunteer and the 24% who did last year. The difference is just the friction and the access and the quality of experience. So we try and remove all that so that folks like Hands On Atlanta can bring out the essence of these organizations and the problems they want to solve, what their communities feel like, expose that and get people involved in it. So thank you for the kind words. We certainly have a role to play here, which is helping anybody who's got that kind of sense of purpose to go and play ball. But the things you're referring to and thinking of are a direct result of the folks we work with rather than the infrastructure we've built.
That's great. So Tim, tell us, so you've had this for about 6 months now. Sounds like it's running terrific, getting great results. What's next? What's on tap for the organization? Where's your focus moving forward?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we're in the middle of strategic planning right now, so so we're getting ready to talk a little bit more about that with our board in a all day offsite tomorrow. So like the next level thinking is really where we're focused on. I can share. Our vision is to be the most civically engaged and equitable community in the world. And so I kind of talked earlier about just that frequency, touching 35,000, 40,000 people on an annual basis. Like, we're not close. And frankly, our partners, the need from the community is growing. And so we're really looking at how can we kind of double down on the folks that are already kind of like engaged and committed. So if you're volunteering, 1, 2, 3 times a year, how can we get that to 10 times a year? Building more of a community of volunteers. One of the things that we struggle with just in our role is we're constantly telling volunteers to go to other nonprofits. So a volunteer comes to us and they find a nonprofit, they have a great experience. The likelihood of them identifying as a Hands on Atlanta volunteer is probably a lot less. They're going to go, they'll say that they volunteer with that organization, or they're that organization's volunteer. So that on the other side, if somebody comes to us and they find a nonprofit and they have a not so great experience, well, then it's my fault because I was the one who told to go there. So our funnel is always open, and like we're always trying to get more and more engagement, and how we can really like build those like brand affinity with organizations to think of us not just as the platform by which they came to find their volunteer project, but also the community of volunteers that we're trying to go. So those are some things that we're thinking about. How are we going to do that moving forward? And I've talked with some members of Sam's team on how we can incorporate some of that through the Golden platform, and it seems as though it's going to be a lot easier than I anticipated, which is good. It might be news to you, Sam.
That's always good to hear.
Yeah. We're going to ask you for specifics on that, Tim. So what are those areas of opportunity, and what kind of team members are helping you identify them?
Yeah, so we're trying to think more community management. So how can I connect? Let me just back up. So from our experience and where we're standing, like most people volunteer with somebody else. It's typically hard for someone just to go show up to a random nonprofit that they may have never been to before by themselves. Typically, it's a strength in numbers thing. So you'll bring a coworker or a friend or a family member. And so we want to like scale that idea and think, how can we connect volunteers at large to one another, and really build I don't want to call it a social network, but just like anything else, it's a niche group of highly engaged individuals. And so what we're able to do is, if we do that on Discord, if we create if it's a Slack channel, if it's a Facebook group, that's TBD, being able to incorporate those that link or that access directly within our volunteer portal is something that the team, Kayla is the one I've been working with on that, and some of your engineers to make that happen. So that way it's a seamless, again, going back to frictionless, because that's the biggest thing for us is we can't create all these, we can't make it harder for folks to try to engage. So meet them where they are. Okay, we're on the portal. Now let's take you to the community and try to do some long-term engagement there. We're also, frankly, just trying to sharpen our nonprofit partners' ability to engage volunteers and have really like strong, meaningful projects that folks are going to want to come back to. So we provide workshops and programming and things like that to build capacity and really lean into what we do best when paired with really good technology that works to hopefully bring those folks together.
So Tim, it's very inspiring hearing you kind of very fluidly jump from talking about the perspective of problem solving and getting a program up and running and working the way you want, and going right into, within a couple of months, thinking about the evolution of your ecosystem and what kind of holistic experience you're trying to provide the folks that you work with. And some of that is human and experiential. Other parts is maybe technology related, and you touched on a few of those themes. But the important thing is, just from a distance, listening to you speak, how much confidence you have in just tackling those things one after another. And you're obviously very talented. Your team is very talented. But the fact of the matter is, these projects don't need to be so daunting. I think you're inspiration for maybe thousands, if not millions, of organizers out there to see that they can just knock these things out and move to the next thing on their list. As far as community management is concerned, there are a lot of different options. Discord and Slack are great ones, or WhatsApp groups. These are things people use casually all the time and do the job. They're also, very much more robust solutions in certain ways that exist out there. For example, in Salesforce, like Salesforce Experience Cloud, which used to be called Communities, which have some other benefits, but all of these can be connected to the profiles you have of your volunteers. So they can use the same login, hop over to Discord, have a similar experience. The platforms are linked to each other. Their data lives on your record of that person. That person owns their own data. So if they need to delete it, it can be deleted. And but it just sounds like you're able to use the technology to do strategic things. It's not about the technology itself, but you need to have the right technology in place. And the folks who are used to using it, whether it's our client strategy team, who you very kindly called out here, whose job it is to be in your corner and just sort of understand, not necessarily build, but just help you make informed choices. Or whether you're working with folks like Cathexis that help operationalize, choices like that. The whole reason why I think the three of us are here is so that we can focus on the quality experience that you're trying to deliver and not get so drowned in the details of tool selection, operationalization, budgeting, et cetera. I just really appreciate how easy you show that it is, not that you make it look. I think many times we get in our own heads about how arduous these projects seem from the outside, but you guys are doing a terrific job of just taking one thing, moving after the other. And, clearly you'll have millions of dollars of economic value in terms of time savings, volunteer hour origination, donation improvements, maybe corporate sponsors and so forth that you've been able to get as a result of taking these projects head on.
Yeah, well I appreciate that. And I can just say that a lot of that comes with our embracing of failure. So we've taken a page out of the the startup playbook, which is fail fast. And I myself and our CEO used to host a series of events. I won't use the correct word, but F up night, where we've learned a lot. So I think it's bringing that mentality to the stage to see, like, all right, well, let's just try it. Let's see if it works. Let's put an MVP together and go to town. And your team has been really, I'm thankful for the team, because any request that we've had, big or small, typically gets somewhere found its way into the pipeline, and then a week later or days later, it's, hey, that thing we were talking about in our meeting last week is it's solved. We figured it out, and here we go, and this is what we're doing. Or, hey, it's part of a bigger push, and we're going to be rolling that out next quarter with these 14 other things. So I just like that the product continues to evolve, and meet us where we are. We talked earlier, like, the world is different, very different today than it was 3 years ago. And so we're continuing to change and evolve with it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, to that point, we were chatting before we started the recording, and of course, as it does these days, Chat GPT comes up, right? And it was interesting to hear, Sam, you mentioned that you've got some AI already built and has been built and adding to it. Would love to hear a little bit more about that, if you would mind sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think AI, obviously, people are talking about it and thinking about it. And some folks understand how big of a change this is in the order of magnitude of it in terms of the biggest technological events in human history. And even before November, when ChatGPT launched, the idea of AI certainly was on people's heads. It's been inspiring science fiction for decades already, but we're really in the thick of it now. And Golden was founded in 2015, and even in 2015, we were using AI to some degree. to do personalization of content to an end user, to an everyday person who's just trying to find volunteer opportunities. So we use filters and certain parameters to rank order. We have an algorithm for giving options to people, but behaviorally, we're observing and profiling in an anonymous, non-invasive way what we think is going to have more appeal to users over time, just the same way a lot of other personalization engines like on Netflix or Amazon work. And so we've had that AI. It's resulted in really strong performance since inception for people finding and participating in volunteer opportunities. So for example, nobody else in the industry prior to Golden was actually tracking the percentage of people who look at an opportunity listing and attend it, because the listing services, many of whom are our partners, distribution partners, didn't specialize in facilitating volunteering. They just specialized in getting somebody to find an organization that they could then get in touch with and coordinate. And likewise, the tools that those organizations were using were only used for time tracking. They weren't an end-to-end way of observing people's discovery and engagement with them. And Golden has since inspired many other companies to think in this way, but that was very novel. And our metrics, we don't benchmark against other people in the social sector. We really benchmark against industry leaders and strong e-commerce conversion rate. So if you're on Nike.com and you're adding a pair of shoes to your shopping cart, something like a 6 or 7% conversion rate of somebody who's looking at a pair of shoes, adding it to their shopping cart would be considered good. Something like Amazon is maybe in the 12-13% range, and you're on Amazon every day. And so its engine is getting very good at recommending products to you. We, on average, convert people to sign up for volunteer opportunities. This is live inventory, not just express interest and fill out a form with their contact information. 22.5% of the time. And on mobile, it's higher. It's in the mid-20s. And that's because there's excellent content, but also because there's AI there. The future of AI for us is in automating optimization of opportunity listings for organizers. So when they're posting opportunities, we obviously have very clear structure in how we get quality opportunities up there, but we can help improve it and give inline feedback or even create content in certain cases, sometimes from your own content library, to give a really strong opportunity listing. And we can also use AI to profile and stay with the ideal versions of your donors to get them to donate to their full potential along their journeys, whatever those journeys are. It's not just a drip sequence of communications. It's understanding who they are, what their aspirations are, what their engagement patterns are, when they're in moments of high satisfaction, what their potential to give is, what their network looks like, and then helping them get to that place so that the same way they have that strong volunteer experience, they feel like they're the kind of supporter that's done everything they could to make the mission possible. And so we're very inspired by all that. It's not just a gimmick. It's another instance of how new technology can take these barriers out of the way to people having the highest quality of life possible.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, so no, that's terrific, and I love to see that stuff in action. It's here, it's real. It's not, like you said, it's not just a gimmick. So that's the important part, right? How can we actually use this to make the world better? So Tim and Sam, any final thoughts? Any advice for folks in the trenches? About volunteerism and looking to improve efficiencies. Any final thoughts in any of this process?
Yeah, I'll just say, hopefully I still have a job if ChatGPT is gonna. I'm trying to just like stay ahead of the curve. I'm just like I gotta figure this thing out, man.
I think you're good.
But,
I think you're good.
The marketer in me is freaking out a little bit, but no, I'm just kidding. But I think for me, over the course of the past year or so that we've really been working closely with Sam and his team, it's really just kind of been beaten over my head, and it's become very obvious, this idea of just like simplicity and just make it easier. I think for me, like I said, my background is in marketing, and so I'm creative. I'm thinking of like, how do I make this look prettier? How do I add certain words to make it sound better or convert it? And at the end of the day, it just needs to work. A lot of our nonprofits that we work with are really small organizations. They're folks, a lot of them are just volunteers themselves, especially a lot of our food pantry partners. They don't really know what they're doing. They don't get technology. They just want to help their community. They want to feed their neighbors. And similarly, like volunteers are, it's kind of like one of the same. They don't need like all the bells and whistles that I want to give them, and that I want to make it, this big, beautiful thing, even though it is. It's the fact that it's simple. And so what we've been able to do is really carry that through a lot of other things that we do across our organization, is really just kind of dumb it down, and let's just make it easy to understand and easy to use. And we've seen a lot of growth from that. We've seen a lot of success by just removing those barriers. And I have to say, like, if I'm being honest, like a lot of that was just, it came very obvious and clear when we started working with the team at Golden and their whole philosophy and how everything was operating and how they built their company and how they built their software. It was really helpful for us. So that would be my parting take on anything. There's a lot of things I could talk to you about, but I think just keeping it simple and that's it.
I like it. Sam, any final thoughts?
I mean, that was wonderful to hear. Music to my ears, Tim. So the team, I think when the team hears this, you're going to bring some people to tears because of what it's taken to make it possible. And our clients don't always use the tools to their potential, and they don't always see us as the kinds of partners that we see ourselves in the eyes of the clients. I'm sure, Mark, you've had experiences like that with your clients too. So it means a lot. So thank you for sharing that. I would just say, for anybody who is ambitious about what they'd like to do, you have an example now, Tim's organization, that you can model yourselves after, sort of see what they're doing at handsonatlanta.org.
Yeah, great story. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thank you both for joining us today, and look forward to being out there in the wild and seeing everybody at upcoming conferences. And thanks for sharing all your thoughts today, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. We hope you'll join us at Bridge Tech and for the next episode of the Nonprofit Voice. Listen to more episodes at nonprofitpro.com, as well as on Apple, Google, and Spotify.